I have no idea if anyone's even gonna show up for this, and I've never done this before, so I'm winging it. And I was supposed to do this a long time ago, but bedtime did not go as planned, and now here we are. But I basically am very behind on a lot of things and did not have time to make a video this week, so I thought it would be fun to try something different and do a live video. So I asked on my Instagram account what questions people wanted to have answered. I got a couple responses, so I'm just going to answer those questions right now. If people show up in the chat and ask more questions, we'll answer those too. So the first one that I got was basically, if I'm remembering correctly, how I evaluate new horses or horses that I'm looking at. So we got a few new horses in this week. One was a client horse, and two were possible new school horse candidates. And so a lot of times when people are evaluating horses that they might want to adopt or purchase or bring into their programs, they're looking a lot at skill. And for me, I feel like skill is often something we can teach as long as there isn't any major block in terms of like behavioral or physical limitations for a horse. And so what I'm looking more at is like more personality, potential. What is this horse showing a propensity for? And I actually just recently did a whole video on this, so maybe I'll link that. I'm not really sure how the live thing works, but we'll see. But I generally am looking more at like kind of what is this horse something that we could work with, knowing that I have the ability to potentially teach some skill. I do think a lot of times when people are looking at horses, it's easy to get kind of sucked into this idea of looking at their potential and not looking at what we have right in front of us. And I think depending on your skill set with training, it can be helpful to remember that you might not be able to change a horse. And so being able to, for me, especially looking at school horses, it makes sense because it's a bit of a numbers game. And I try to have a variety of horses at different kind of skill sets and abilities, as long as they're all safe for the general public to come ride. Um, if I bring in a horse thinking it's going to be great for beginners and it turns out to be more of an intermediate horse, that's not really a problem for me. But if I have a client who goes and they're looking for one particular horse to be their one and only, and that horse doesn't fill that need for them, that's a really big problem. And so that's also really important to look at when you're evaluating a horse. So then once I've kind of looked at like, does this horse fill the need that I need them to fill? The first time I actually get to handle a horse, I like to do a groundwork evaluation first. So I'm first checking, will they let me touch them everywhere? Is there anything they don't want me to touch? I'm also looking for anything swollen or any signs of leg injuries or other physical injuries. I'm also watching the horses like tension level in their face, their body language as I'm kind of working around them. I'm checking to see like, is this making them uncomfortable at all, or do they mostly feel pretty safe and confident as I'm kind of working around their feet and touching their tail and under their belly. And then I like to also kind of test like, what does this horse know? And as I'm testing that, I'm usually moving the hind end, moving the front end, asking them to back up, looking for how soft they are, how responsive they are. If they don't know the right answer, are they willing to try, or do they kind of get shut down or frustrated easily? And then I'm also looking at, as I'm doing all of this, how mobile they are. So I'm thinking about, do they flex and bend easily, or are there maybe some physical limitations that I need to be taking into account? And then generally from there, I'll go into my kind of physical evaluation. So I'll be looking at top line body condition score. Again, any physical limitations, I'm looking at their hooves. I'm looking at how bright and alert they seem. If they seem shut down, I'm always a little bit worried that, later on we might get a new behavior we didn't see in the beginning because they were just like shut down in the beginning. And as they warm up and get comfortable, we might see some new unraveling. So I'm looking to make sure that they're engaged and bright and alert to the situations around them and not just kind of have blinders on to the world. And then after all that, then I consider riding. And so even if you don't see me going through this checklist with a new horse, a lot of times this is what I'm going through in my own mind. And a lot of times if I'm talking to a seller, I'm also asking them questions like, how does the horse load in the trailer? Or how do they stand for the farrier or the vet? And the way that the seller answers those questions can give me a lot of information about how the horse has been handled and treated. If they've been kind of treated very delicately, like a bomb that might go off at any given time, or if they've been treated maybe on the other extreme, like kind of rough and not much care for their emotional safety, or maybe something in the middle, which is kind of where I like to be. So anyway, those are kind of my thoughts on evaluating a horse. And I guess if you're not here live and you want to answer or ask me follow-up questions in the comments, I'll try to answer those later. Okay, and then the second question I got was about how I start liberty training with horses. I love to do liberty training, but I do it purely as connection, bonding, and play. I don't really consider it part of my like regular training program, but I do use it a lot of times with a horse that needs to boost a little bit of confidence or a horse that maybe is um, like a little bit too playful and I want to channel that somewhere. And so sometimes I will kind of pull the liberty training out of the bag, but a lot of times I just do it for fun and as a way to connect with the horse that I'm trying to bond with. And so basically, there's two main ways that I'll go about liberty training. And I don't ever try to like make a horse do liberty. I'm not trying to like really take it anywhere, other than, again, just for my own enjoyment and the horse's own enjoyment, and so if they don't express interest in it, even on a given day, if, they did yesterday and today they're not interested, I don't mind, I'm not gonna try to, like, entice them at all, but basically, there's 2 ways that I can go about this. So one is depending on the personality type of the horse. If they're a horse that likes to understand things, if they're very intelligent and they wanna, um, have an understanding, especially a horse that lacks confidence that really wants to understand things. I'm going to come first actually with a line and I'm going to try to teach them the body language that I'm going to be teaching them off the line. And so I do a lot of sending and drawing and sending and drawing and sending and drawing and then sending you this way and sending you that way and then like drawing you in again. And a lot of this like back and forth. And then can I send the hind end? Can I send the front end? And once we get this really soft sending and drawing, and sometimes this takes several sessions, then I'll experiment with taking the line off and continuing to use those same sort of commands with my body language and see if I can get the horse to respond. And a lot of times, this is really helpful with horses that haven't been necessarily socialized by other horses. So, horses that haven't lived out in a herd from the time they were very young, or horses that have had really intense performance based training from a young age. And so they have an idea already in their mind of what their relationship to a human is supposed to look like. A lot of times, these horses really need you to like hold their hand, so to speak, and have them on the line and show them how to do these things and then take them off and say, see, look, we can do it without the line too. And then the second type is for horses that are naturally curious by nature and that already want to be with me. So, like, if you've been watching my Instagram at all, Olive for sure is like this big time. But also, we have a new client horse in Bubbles who is very much like this. Like, you just go in her stall and she's like, "What are we doing?" and like wants to be on top of you at all times. I have a handful of other client horses like this. I should just make a video about liberty training. Let me know if that would be helpful or fun to watch. But anyway, um, so if the horse already naturally wants to be close and is curious and trying to figure out what I'm looking for, then I'm just going to immediately go into drawing. Sometimes a little bit of a food reward, like some hay pellets, can be helpful here just to like get it started. But I try not to rely on food rewards too much for Liberty because again, it's really about the bond and the relationship. So I don't want them doing this seeking food. I want them doing the seeking connection. And so if they're already interested, I'll kind of go into a drawing body language. And I do a lot of arcing and I try to just kind of pique their interest. I might hold my hand out as if I had a little snack and then kind of walk away. And so the idea is I'm kind of like leaving them a little bit wanting more, a little bit curious, like what is she up to over there? Can I get involved somehow? And then once I have them hooked on, a lot of times then that's when I'll start very carefully increasing the pressure. And the whole time I'm watching that horse. So, and by pressure, I mean like I might ask them to trot after me, or I might ask for tighter turns or for a stop and back up. And as I'm asking for increasingly harder and harder things for them to do, I'm making sure that I always come back to this kind of drawing and like, ooh, and now you're curious again, if that makes sense. And so I'm kind of always going back and forth between these two. Anyway, those are my two questions that I had asked. So, and since nobody else is here, because it's very, very late by the time I'm getting to this, because my baby just did not want to go to sleep tonight, and he's normally like quick to go to sleep. So, everything's upside down and backwards today, and that's all right. So I'm going to leave it there. If you have follow-up questions, leave them in the comments. And if this is something that you'd like to see me do again, maybe at a more reasonable hour, let me know, and I will try to accommodate that because, yeah, always open to trying new things. Okay, thanks so much. Have a good night, everybody.